right, joining me today, we've got two of the premier key defenders out of WA. Unfortunately, we couldn't complete the trio. We did try with the video, but someone had a sore shoulder, so he wanted to back out because he was afraid of losing another game of pig. But I've got Hugh Davies and Jedd Busslinger. Boys, how are we?
Very good, thanks, man.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you know, the key defenders, I know from my amateur footballing experience in the back line of getting absolutely dicked week in, week out, you grow a tight bond through pain. As the key defenders in the state squad, what kind of bond do you guys sort of grow together? You only got the 2 games together, but what kind of bond do you two have?
It's pretty strong. I mean, all defenders really, it comes pretty naturally for us. So, yeah, it's good. Very strong.
Yeah, I feel like me and Sauce have a really good relationship and on the field, we're able to show that. I think, all defenders comes a bit natural. I think we're the tightest unit on the field, so especially between the key defenders, we're a bit more tighter. We've got to deal with the big boys, so we get the job done. Yep,
nice. Now, as far as state footy goes, you know, there's so many state pathways, or, you know, through 12s, 15s, 16s, so on and so forth. Where did state footy start for you boys? What, you know, squads were you in along the way to get to the point where you are now in the under-18s?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be in the state 12s originally and state 15s and did all the states. But, started in state 12s. Probably wasn't a key member in any of the younger teams, sort of just floated in and did my role and was happy with that. But, sort of as the years have gone on, able to show a bit more and probably become a bit more of a, not so much as a role player.
For me, I probably started in the 16s down to South Perth, but that probably got a bit stuffed up from COVID, so it was more just the last year and this year where we finally started getting into it, so yeah.
Yep. Now, as far as 12s go, how many blokes, and I guess even for 16s as well, how many blokes are in those teams that you think at that age, like, absolute gun, they're 100% locked to get drafted, and now they're not even in the state squad at all, not even close to it?
Yeah, a lot. There's probably 450 people that try out and everyone in the team, you think, geez, these kids are pretty good. Like, I was probably the worst player in the team, and you just think, like, these kids are insane. Like, they're definitely getting drafted. But, things happen, and you're only 12 years old. Plenty of people pop up as the year goes by, and some people just peak pretty early and a fair bit bigger bodies than everyone else.
Yep. Now, as far as I want to talk about PSA footy first, you've both been in the PSA competition through Trinity and through Christchurch. You know, what's your PSA experience like? Obviously, I come from a public school. We don't quite have a very good football team there, let alone a football team. What's it like, you know, the PSA experience going through, trying to crack into the first team as a young bloke?
Yeah, so it's definitely like one of the biggest things when you're young, year 10, year 11, like that's what you want to do. That's the next step in terms of footy and where you want to go. So I was lucky enough to play in year 10, 11 and 12, and Christchurch isn't the strongest footy school, but we definitely put our foot down this year, so we played pretty well. So
yeah, mine was probably a little bit different to Sauce. I only managed one game in year 10 and trained the whole year there, but just couldn't get a gig. We had a pretty talented team, and then year 11, I only played probably 3 games. I was injured. And then, year 12 got a full run at it. But, it was awesome to play with your mates that you see every day at school. But obviously we weren't too talented and we didn't even win a game in year 12, which was pretty disappointing, and we probably felt like we missed out on what a lot of the other schools had, and probably the culture. But at the same time, like, I love playing with my teammates, and it was good fun.
Yeah, now I've got a very loose understanding of the PSA and its history. Are Trinity like one of the worst teams? Because I thought it was Guildford Grammar was usually the worst. Who's like usually the worst team every year?
Yeah, historically definitely probably Guildford, but close second Trinity, I'd say.
Yeah, and where does Christchurch rank? Just sort of in the middle, nothingness?
Pretty much smack bang in the middle.
Yeah, now growing up, I know Trinity, I was actually surprised by how many blokes had been drafted from Trinity. But, you know, you would have seen a lot of players who did get drafted or got close to getting drafted when you were maybe in year 7 or 8 just watching. Who were some of the standout players for you growing up in your PSA school that you really looked up to?
Yeah, so when I was in year 7, the year 12s at the time, there was probably about, genuinely, I think there was about 8 kids from Trinity in the state team. They didn't even win the comp because I think most of them, like, state was a bit different back then, and they were playing most of the year. So, there was plenty. I think Brandon Starcevich is the main one that's gone on with it, but I think like Ben Maguire, Jackson Cahill, I couldn't even name them all, but there was a fair few going through, and then like Fish last year didn't quite get drafted, but he was pretty big for Trinity.
Yeah, for Christchurch, we had a couple in recent years. So probably the first one that comes to mind is Tim English. It was a bit before my time, but his name just kind of rang around the school when I was young in year 7 and 8. And then towards the back end, Liam Henry and Gus, they were really big. And I played with Gus a bit, so yeah, it was good.
Yeah, now it's obviously a bit of an interesting competition because there is really high talent in there, but it's also a bit of a split. You know, a lot of players would be the best in the Colts and a lot of players can't get a game in the Colts. Who would be the best player you came up against throughout your time in the PSA?
Good question. I think we versed Max Chipper when I was in year 11. I think he had 49 disposals, 20 marks. Rhett Bazzo was pretty good that game. Probably those two. I think just remember individual performances from those two was pretty good. I think, just couldn't stop him.
Yeah, for me, you probably played on him as well, Tom Graham from Scotch, back when I was in year 10. And, year 10, I think, because he would have been year 12 and probably kicked 50 goals in 10 games, so he was really good key forward.
Yeah, Ed actually said you were one of the toughest players he came up against in PSA. How does that make you feel?
That's really nice of Ed. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Now, specifically to you, playing PSA in your draft year, it doesn't in WA get as much, I guess, media coverage as it would in the eastern states, especially Victoria PSA or their APS competition's huge there. Do you feel, I guess, not at all disadvantaged, but like you're missing out on something by playing PSA in your draft year and maybe playing far less Colts games than some of the other boys?
It's hard to say, but there's definitely a lot more eyes at the Colts level. But there's still eyes at PSA. Recruiters are there. They come to watch you. If they got your eye on you, they'll come down to the game. It's not too much of a disadvantage, but I guess the media kind of makes it seem like there is. So.
Yeah. Now, looking at last year, State 17s, both of you boys made the squad for State 17s. What was your bottom age year like? What kind of footy were you playing? How did you feel about the footy that you had played? How close did you feel like you were to being the player you wanted to be regarding this year and this year's draft? And how do you look back on your bottom age year as a whole? What's something you've taken away from that into this year?
For me, my bottom age year was I wasn't really at the stage where I should be. Just kind of not lazy, but just not up to standard compared to all the other blokes. And then getting into that 17 squad, that kind of just gave me a bit of a kick in the arse, and that's where all the development came in the next year in the pre-season between the bottom age and top age season. So
last year was my first year as a defender. Before that, I'd played in the forward line, so it was a bit new for me, and I felt probably felt okay where I was at, being a first year defender, but also probably not at the stage and at the level where I wanted to be at Colts footy. And then state footy, I was able to play well and probably got a bit of recognition there. But I felt coming into this year that I had a fair bit of improvement left in me and a lot to learn as a defender, which I was lucky enough that I think I was able to do.
Yeah, and that off-season, pre-season, going from state 17s would have been your last game last year, then trying to make sure you're in the state 18s this year. What does that summer look like? What kind of work are you doing with the state squad? What is the conversations like with the coaches from the state squad? What kind of work or things are you looking to improve on to make sure that you are a lock for next year's state squad, for this year's state squad?
Yeah, for me, pretty skinny and have always been, so I tried to put on a lot of size this year, so I was in the gym a fair bit. I took up Pilates and then also probably found out that I needed to be a bit quicker. So I was doing some sprint sessions and a bit of technique stuff just to get me a bit quicker. So it was more around just being able to actually defend a forward. I think I was pretty good offensively, but just needed to tighten up on actually being able to defend a forward. So that was probably my main focus going into the season and would have helped me get into the state squad. Which at the East Perth Seniors, I was lucky to work with them and they really helped me with that. That was probably the main thing that I was trying to improve on.
So towards the back end of last year, I was speaking to Benny Dyer and Adam Jones and them. They gave me some feedback, and I didn't make the initial summer squad, but their feedback really helped, and it gave me a goal to work towards, because I definitely wanted, the whole preseason wanted to make the state squad. So I just went back with Claremont and did my own thing. and then worked hard enough and got there. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, now it's I guess such a short period to get cut from the state squad because, there's no games over that period. What was your initial reaction like to being cut? How did you feel? And I guess, those conversations, what were the main things that they were telling you to work on to work your way back into it?
Yeah, so I probably wasn't surprised. I was definitely disappointed, but I was definitely not up to the standard that compared to like Buzz and all them. But so they just pretty much said, you got to get fitter, work on your skills a bit, do the basics a bit better. So yeah, I really went away and got a running program. That's probably the main thing was for me, the running program. Tried to run 4 times a week almost throughout that whole 8-week period, and that really got me to a new level of fitness I'd never been at and really helped my game. So
yeah, and how soon was it until you were, right back in the state squad? Because obviously before any of the games this year, you were back in it. How short was that time between being cut and being back in the squad?
It was it would have been about 2 months. So it was pre-season Colts games, and got a call from Adam Jones. He was telling me how you're almost there, but not quite. There's between you and someone else for the final spot. And then went away, just put my head down, played the next couple Colts game, and then got the call up after the second round, I think. So, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, now, Jedd, in that time you had obviously a massive pre-season. I believe you were with West Coast for a little bit of it, and then you obviously had the National Academy stuff as well. What that experience of being with the best players in Australia and then being with an AFL side as well, were there any times where you felt like you maybe not up to scratch, but you realised how far you had to go to get onto that AFL level? Like, were there any moments where you just saw someone from West Coast or, someone like a Will Ashcroft and you thought, holy shit, there's a bit of a gap between me and him?
Yeah, it was enormous pre-season for me. I don't think I've ever done anything like it. It was massive for me, which I think I had a lot of development over the pre-season. But yeah, spending time at the Eagles was really good for me. I think I spent a lot of time with Tom Barras while I was over there, and he taught me a fair few things which I didn't even know and probably won't know for a while to the full depth that he knows. So I think, probably the level between me and a star AFL player is enormous. But at the academy, I think everybody was probably a similar level. Like trainings was really good. You sort of learn off other players and the intensity and the extras that you have to do, which was really good. But I probably didn't feel like I was too far off other players. Just probably tightening up on a fair few things would help me in the long run.
Yeah, and as far as the National Academy does go, is it more working on your game, working on fine-tuning those little parts of your game, or is it more so just getting a taste of what the professional lifestyle has to offer?
Yeah, it's probably more what it's like as a professional athlete and the training standards and probably a lot of the off-field sort of stuff. There wasn't too much on-field development because you're only with them for probably 3 to 4 days all up across the whole year. So, there wasn't too much on-field, but off-field, like learning the mental side of the game, speaking to recruiters about the interviews, like just little things that'll help you throughout the year. And then, probably just if you wanted to talk to a coach or see what you need to improve on there, they're always there.
Yeah, now I do want to talk about the National Carnival. Obviously, it was the first one back in 2 or 3 years. How did you feel? How was that experience of being with the boys, being with the group, getting to go across Australia together and I guess just be able to be a part of what felt like a professional environment with just all your mates? What was the first state champs experience like?
As a team, it was great fun. Like we're all pretty close in WA side, so it was pretty good and like a good experience traveling and just spending a whole weekend with your mates constantly, 3 weeks in a row, I think. But then probably as in terms of footy, we probably didn't play our best and only got the 1 win. So definitely, if we could do it again, definitely a lot to work on. So yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. I only played the 2 games, but the amount of enjoyment that I had playing the footy was unreal. Probably some of the funnest games I've ever played in. But then also, the on-field stuff, taking it up to the next level, versing the best players in Australia at your age group and trying to compare yourself to others and trying to prove your worth if you're better than somebody or trying to match somebody. I felt that was awesome. The competitiveness was unreal. It was just a whole lot of fun sort of being with your mates. Yeah, we were really tight as a WA unit and I thought we would do quite a bit better than we did. But, it was a lot of fun and I think everyone improved come the end of the 4 games.
Yep. Now, Hugh, I do want to touch on, obviously, the first game was a bit of a rough one for all the boys, but, Matt Jefferson just pulled out the best performance of his life. It happened to be against you. It's tough, but when that does happen, I guess, what's the toll that sort of takes on you? Is there any moment after that you feel like you're questioning your ability, or is it sort of just, how good you can be, it was a bad game, we move on, and you'll do better next time, which you did go on to improve throughout the rest of the champs?
Yeah, so it was a bit of both. Firstly, didn't help this guy sitting next to me didn't give me a hand, but so probably initial reaction when you walk off the ground, you're like, oh God, what's happened? I'm hopeless. And then remember sitting on the plane, I was watching the vision and kind of watching it, and you just start realizing there's little things like, that's not my fault. I can't really stop that. And then there's some way, I can work on that, but kind of it's all improvement. You can just see the improvements that you can get out of it. So, yeah.
Yep, and Jedd, your carnival came to an end early. You had this shoulder issue for pretty much the whole year, I believe, and from what I read, you planned to get it sorted after the champs, but then halfway through you decided it's time to get it sorted. How bad was it? How much did it affect you? And what was that decision like to, have it in your own hands to know that you're cutting your season short here?
Yeah, I probably found out maybe in April about then that I need shoulder surgery. So by the time it actually happened, I'd sort of come to terms with it. But it was extremely frustrating that I wasn't able to play the full carnival. That was my goal, but it was pretty bad. The last probably 5 games that I played, going for a mark in the air or trying to lay a tackle, was pretty painful. So. It was frustrating that I probably couldn't prove my worth to the extent that I wanted to, but at the same time, I probably felt like I was able to do what I wanted to do coming into the year, but just not as much of it.
Yep. Now, as far as the surgery goes, I actually heard you injured yourself again after the surgery. What happened there? I heard it was just a little accident and something happened. What happened?
Yeah, it was just like a normal Wednesday, walking down the stairs, and I was in some new ankle socks, pretty thin ones, so... at my house, it goes from carpet stairs to wooden stairs, and I've gone to the wooden ones and put my foot near the edge of the step and have slidden forward onto my right side and just put my arm out instinctively to save myself. And it was pretty painful for about 20 seconds, and probably thought that I'd got away with it. Just put an ice pack on it for about an hour and felt pretty good and had my full range of motion and thought maybe I've gotten away with it. But next morning I woke up and it was pretty stiff and had to go in for surgery again. But that's just accidents happen, so got to move on and look into the future. Yeah,
now, Hugh, I'll talk about the champs again. Obviously, Jedd went down and they decided to go like-for-like replace him with another Jedd, Jedd Adams. How did you feel about your new partner in crime? How did you feel like that partnership went comparative to you and Buzz, and who did you prefer defending with?
It was pretty smooth, him coming in. We had kind of a thing where whoever's in, we'll play the same game plan, everything. So it was pretty smooth. And I probably couldn't split them apart. They were both pretty good to play with. So yeah.
Yep. Did you sort of, because you had the 2 games advantage on him, did you sort of just try and take him under your wing and just teach him about how state footy worked?
I wouldn't say that so much, but yeah, I tried to help him out and kind of be a voice out there just to give him a hand if he ever felt nervous or anything. So yeah.
Yep, and then obviously getting that first win as well in the last game against South Australia. How did that feel to get that win with all the boys?
Yeah, it was really good to finally get that first win, and you could almost feel this just kind of buzz around the changing room after the game because everyone pretty much played one of their best games of the champs, and finally all came together, and we kind of showed what we could have done if we were ready first couple of games. So yeah.
Yep. Now, Buzz, you obviously only played the 2. Hugh, you played the 4, but of those games, who was, I guess, the best player from an opposition team that you witnessed, you came up against? Who was, one player from the opposition that really impressed you?
Probably, no offence to the Allies, probably no one in that game was outstanding, probably from both teams, to be honest. In the Vic game, I think Cam McKenzie was pretty good for them, Will Ashcroft and who else? Matt Jefferson kicked 7, but I wouldn't say they were the best 7 goals I've ever seen. So I don't think that was to Source's fault. So yeah, I'd probably say those three were really good in that Vic Metro game.
Yeah, so probably the big standout for me is probably Aaron Cadman. Playing on him was just a whole new experience. He's just very quick at the foot. He's got a dangerous left foot. So if you give him a bit of space, he's going to get away from you. So yeah.
Yep, and as far as WA boys go, who was someone that really impressed you or you feel like, I guess, went underappreciated throughout that state champs?
Oh, I think the obvious one is Ruben. Yeah, I think he deserved the MVP a lot. He probably won all of our hard ball and was really consistent and played with a lot of effort, which is really impressive, and I'm sure impressed a lot of recruiters. He's probably the obvious one. Jack Cleaver, I reckon, probably got underappreciated. I think he was massive in the last game for us. Had a lot of intercept marks, had a lot of rebounds out of the back 50, and he's a really good leader. Loves to use his voice, is really encouraging, and knows how to bring the boys together. So I think his last game was really important for us. But yeah, his whole carnival was really good.
Yeah, so I'd agree with those boys. But also, I probably noticed Corey Turgenza Cashew, who's probably one of the standouts for me. He was a great target up forward, and especially in that Allies game, he was probably one of the shining lights for us. So yeah.
Yeah, now I believe it was in the Allies game where he had that baseline posted the clip of him celebrating the no goal. Did he absolutely cop it in whatever state group chat you have after that?
I don't think so.
I think he copped it at training, but
yeah, we lost the game, so I think everyone was too flat too.
That's fair enough. Now, as far as the proper state champs experience goes, how did that compare to, I guess, underage state footy that you'd played, PSA footy, Waffle Colts? How did that level compare to the level of footy that you had played before?
Yeah, it's definitely a big step up, like nothing you've ever played before. He's got the best players in the country all come together to make one team and just go out and battle. So yeah, it's definitely the best footy I've ever played. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Getting to travel sort of replicates like an AFL game. Hopefully, bit of experience for the boys. But then it's ultra competitive out there, which is awesome. I love that. But then also like it's your draft year, sort of like last couple chances to impress. It's the highest level, so recruiters probably hone into that a fair bit more than they do with any other game. So with the pressure and competitiveness, and alongside your teammates, it was an awesome experience and probably some of the best games that I've been a part of.
Yep. Now, as far as general season performances go, Buzz, obviously you only had the pre-champs games, but Colts League, you were racking up 20-plus touches a game in Colts. I think your lowest marking tally was like 6, so you're absolutely dominating. How did you feel about the footy you played, and how easy was Colts footy this year?
I don't think it was easy by any means, but I was really happy with how my season went. I was able to be in the pre-season with the seniors and improve a fair bit there, but then to probably go down a level back to Colts was really good for me. I was able to show probably my strengths and the stuff that I'd been working on in the pre-season and sort of show the player I am, but then also to move up to the league team and at Colts level probably didn't defend a player as much as you'd hope and as much as an AFL level you'd need to. So to go up to league level and be able to show that I can actually defend and what I'd been working on in the pre-season was really big for me. So I was really happy. I think I was able to show my offensive and defensive side of the game before the state championships, and I was happy with my season.
Yep, and touching on those league games, how did you feel the step up was? How did you feel your game translated into playing league footy? And what did you take away from those 3 games that you did manage of league footy?
Yeah, it was awesome to play up in the seniors for East Perth, doing my whole pre-season there and forming some really good relationships with the boys up there. It was awesome to be up there, and then just the big step up between the size of the bodies, the speed of the game, sort of adjusting to that was probably took a while, and in my 3 games I probably didn't get to show my strengths, but I was more so just playing my role and trying to lock down a key forward and prove that. So if I had to take something out of the game, I'd say just continue to back your strengths in, and that's probably what makes you a good player and why you've been selected. So in the future, I'll just be continuing to play to my strengths, and hopefully they'll hold me in good stead.
Yeah, now Hugh, obviously, as far as your season goes, it's much tougher to find performances for PSA, but from all accounts I've heard, you had an absolute great season at PSA level. You played the 3 games at Claremont and tore up. How did you feel about the footy that you played this year?
Oh yeah, so it was a bit disrupted because you keep changing programs, but started pretty well at Claremont. Got the 1 win on the board there, so it was all right. And then went to school and we started pretty well. Got some big wins that, especially against Aquinas, probably the big one for me. We hadn't beat them in probably 20 years or something, and finally, because I lost them a couple of times by less than a goal in the previous game, so it was good to finally beat them, and then head to the champs, get all that done, and then go back to school and then finish at Colts. It was good, but a bit disrupted. So yeah.
Yep, and going from the start of the year where you had just fallen out of the state squad over the summer to the point where you're now a national combine invitee, were there any moments, any games, anything you did this year in your footy that sort of stood out to you, or I guess any patches that stood out to you as a point where recruiters probably got really excited about you as a player?
I'm not sure. Maybe not a certain point, but I always had the confidence that I was at that level. I could match these boys. So I think for me it was just consistency, being one of the best every game, having that consistency across all levels, and then that's probably what stood me out for recruiters. So yeah.
Yep. Now, national combine, both of you were unable to test. Hugh, you actually got injured before, like in the lead up to training. Yeah. What did you do? How did you do it? How did you feel when you found out you couldn't test?
Yeah. So Claremont finished a bit early, so I had a couple of weeks off, and then we went to the state place and started training there, just pretty much doing running and gym. And I probably went a bit hard too quick after having 2 weeks and nothing. So I started getting a bit of pain in my back, and I was like, oh, this doesn't seem right. So I spoke to the physio, and we just got scans to double check. And yeah, caught a stress fracture, but we caught it pretty early, which was lucky. So it was good to get on top. And now back in the gym just recently, so almost getting through it pretty good. So yeah.
Yep. Now, as far as the combine goes, when you're not testing, it's really just interviews, and then otherwise, just the boys in Melbourne doing whatever. I have heard the combine itself kind of sucked. The catering was a bit shit. It was pretty boring. But how was the combine experience, as a non-testing player?
Yeah, I think it was pretty awesome. Sort of, it's something that you've always dreamed of being a part of, and see it from a pretty young age. So to finally be there, whether it was testing or not, was pretty grateful for. And it was probably a long couple of days. We were at Etihad Stadium for a fair while, and interviews only go for about 20 minutes. So there's a fair bit of time where you're not doing much, but at the same time, you're with all your mates there in Melbourne. You're part of something pretty cool. And yeah, it was good to see the WA boys testing on the last day, and they all did really well. So it was just good to see that and be a part of.
Yeah, I reckon for us it was probably a bit better than the other boys. They had a 2K hanging over their heads for the whole 3 days. So that wouldn't have been great. But for us, we spoke to some clubs, had some downtime, and then watched the WA boys do the testing. So it was good.
Yeah, now as far as the interviewing process goes, now I've heard it's sort of just like this long, narrow hallway with, 9 clubs either side, and you just sort of get called up, and then sometimes you wait outside for a bit, and then you go in. There could be 1 bloke, there could be 8 blokes. What's that whole interview process like? What are you feeling as you're going into these interviews, and how did you feel you went to talking to these clubs?
So it's for all clubs, it's pretty similar. It's just a big long hallway. All the clubs are down there, and you got your schedule on your sheet, so you can kind of prepare for who you're seeing, and you just kind of go in, and they ask somewhat similar questions. If they're new clubs, then probably basic questions. Maybe if you spoke to them, then more in depth. But yeah, it's all pretty similar, and after the first couple, you get pretty used to it. So yeah.
Yeah, similar to Source. It was probably fairly nerve-wracking the first couple. Probably did very bad in my first couple, and then after that, you get used to it, and they're more so just general chats. I know some of the boys had pretty tricky questions, but mine were all just general chats, and I'd got to know all the recruiters before that, but it still was just getting to know you and just general chat. So, nothing too bad.
Yep. Now, Hugh, I've been told that you were a self-proclaimed comedian throughout your interviews. Apparently, you had them in stitches just with some of the jokes you were dishing up. What were you saying in these interviews? Is there any truth to those claims?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask recruiters. But I was just being myself, having a laugh. Nothing too special, nothing too weird, but yeah, it was good.
Yeah, were there any big players? Because, some of them have their coaches in, like a Vossi, a Sam Mitchell, those sort of players. Was there anyone in these, interview processes or any AFL players around there that you just sort of looked at and you just thought, holy shit, like I'm in the same room as this bloke and having a conversation with him?
Yeah, there was some big names there. For me, saw Robbie Gray and Jared Ruffhead. They were probably the two biggest. So, yeah.
Yeah, them two. Sam Mitchell was in there. The Saints coach at the time was in there. I think they're the only ones that I saw, yeah. But, yeah, it's pretty cool being in the same room as them and talking to them as if it's like a job interview sort of thing.
Yeah, now you say that, Buzz. You've actually, there's been, I guess, a favourite article for people to post about you, that you and Joel Selwood are best mates. How did, that relationship, how did that sort of form between you two? Because I understand that it came from you being an Auskicker, but how did it get to a point where you two were talking to each other and apparently he picked you up from school once? Were you immediately the coolest bloke at school and footy as a result of that?
Yeah, I was already the coolest bloke
Yeah,
at school.
sorry,
to be
after
honest.
that, were you top of the table?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the Auskicker of the Year competition and a part of, if you win, Joel Selwood becomes your mentor for a year and sort of that, it just formed from that and, you get his number and so you can text him whenever you want or on Instagram, gives you a follow. So, you just shoot him a message whenever you want really and I've sort of always loved footy as well, so it's been pretty cool for me that I've been able to message him whenever I want and just like after he retired and I won the grand final, I shot him a message. So, it's a pretty cool relationship that I've loved because I've been a lover of footy. So, it's really cool.
Okay, now back to the combine and the interviews. I just want to ask a pretty simple one. Who do you reckon would have been doing the absolute worst in their interviews? Who'd be the one bloke that would just be stuttering and tripping over their words every time?
Oh God, I don't know. What do you think, Buzz?
Not you, though.
Yeah.
Not me.
Not you. I don't know. I reckon everyone's pretty good. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. So,
yeah, I think everyone gets pretty comfortable after the first couple.
So all right. Nice safe answer. Now, obviously, we're just weeks away from the draft. Junior careers all wrapped up. It's all done and dusted. Hopefully for you boys, it's professional careers from here till the end. How do you feel looking back on it, knowing that you've done everything you can in the last, not just 1, but 2, 3, 4 years to impress AFL clubs and, how does it feel to look back and think that PSA, Waffle Colts, it's all done for you boys?
Yeah, it's probably a bit daunting. It's gone pretty quick. Before you know it, it's all over. I haven't played. I mean, you're not going to play for Claremont potentially again for me. Definitely not for the Colts. So, yeah, it's pretty daunting and it's kind of going into the big world out there. So, yeah, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, it's I've loved junior footy. I love footy. So, it'll be sad to move on from the junior footy. But, I'm looking forward to the next chapter, whatever that is. But, I feel like I've got everything out of myself that I possibly could have and really proud and happy of how I've gone this year and in the years past and, just looking forward to whatever the future holds.
Yeah, and as far as the draft goes, not only is there this feeling of, will I get drafted, will I not get drafted, but also the feeling of, where the hell will I be living a month from now? Like you could be living anywhere in Australia. How are you feeling just about that prospect that you may have to pack up and I guess leave all your friends, your family, everything I'm sure you're 100% prepared, but how do you feel knowing that could happen and you might have to move away and start a new life?
I probably haven't really thought about it that much. I've been pretty stoked up in waste. Like that's been keeping my mind occupied. But maybe if you are lucky enough to get drafted on the night, then it'll probably hit then, and you'll finally have to really think about it. So yeah.
Yeah, probably hit me pretty early in the year. I started to play a bit better footy and sort of became more of a reality and have come to terms with it. And I'm pretty comfortable moving away from home. I think it'd be pretty exciting. But yeah, I don't think it'll really hit me until if my name gets called out. And if it does, at the moment, I've really no clue where it'll be. So I'm just looking forward to it. And if it is across the country, I'm looking forward to that. I think that's pretty exciting. Get to grow up a little bit faster than others would and fend for yourself, which I think it'd be really cool and become pretty professional pretty quickly.
Yep, and just finally, road to the draft finale next Sunday. Now, Hugh, are you competing? Do you know whether or not you'll be competing yet?
I'll have to ask the physio.
Yeah, Buzz, you've obviously come up with your early excuse, even though LJ got you the celebration for your next chance. Who are you thinking is going to take out the dub next Sunday?
Oh, well, if I do compete, definitely me.
Yeah, obviously. If you can't say yourself.
I'm gonna say Ed Allen. He's my favourite.
Yeah, Bells.
I reckon Tyrell Dewar. I reckon he might just sit in the pocket all day if he gets a shot, and I reckon he's a smoky. I'd back him.
I've got money on Scafie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
He's weirdly good at that sort of stuff and just bombs them from like 55.
Yeah, he'll cheat. He'll go 60 out. And
Yeah, maybe I'll just make it a rule, nothing further than 25, just to keep
I
myself
would.
in the game.
I'd do that if I was you.
Yeah. All right, boys, that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations on the year you've both had. Best of luck with the draft, and I'll see you both next Sunday.
Thank you very much
Cheers.
for having us.